He was laughing in another woman's arms when his pregnant wife sent the divorce papers. Sunlight streamed through the wide glass windows of the downtown cafe, casting a golden glow over polished marble floors and clinking champagne glasses. It was late morning, bright and unforgiving, the kind of daylight that reveals everything too clearly. Rohan Malhotra stood near the corner table, his arm loosely wrapped around a woman in a red dress who wasn't his wife. His head tilted back in careless laughter, unaware that at that very moment, across town, a courier was climbing the narrow stairs to his apartment with an envelope that would shatter his world. Before we go any further, if you believe in kindness, in second chances, and in the power of redemption, take a moment to like, comment, share, and subscribe to the channel, Kindness Journal. Your support keeps stories like this alive. Aanya Malhotra had not slept the night before. The morning light slipped through the thin curtains of their bedroom, illuminating the faint swell of her 7-month pregnancy as she sat upright against the headboard. The house was too quiet. Rohan had told her he had an urgent client meeting, and she had nodded, pretending not to notice the new cologne, the extra time he spent fixing his hair, the growing distance in his eyes. But suspicion is a seed that once planted refuses to stay buried. She hadn't planned to follow him. She hadn't planned to see what she saw. But when she reached the cafe and looked through the glass, she felt her breath leave her body. There he was, holding someone else with a tenderness he had not shown her in months. The woman's hand rested comfortably on his chest. They looked familiar. Intimate. Happy. Aanya didn't storm in. She didn't scream. She simply stood there, her reflection faintly visible in the glass beside the image of her husband wrapped around another life. In that silent, piercing moment, something inside her broke, but something else hardened. She placed a trembling hand on her belly, feeling her child shift gently, as if sensing her pain. She turned and walked away, the daylight too bright for her blurred vision. Back home, she sat at the dining table where they once shared breakfasts and laughter. The ultrasound photo still hung on the refrigerator. Tiny socks lay folded on the sofa. Every corner of the apartment held evidence of hope. But hope felt foolish now. With steady hands that surprised even her, she called a lawyer. By noon, the papers were drafted. By early afternoon, they were sent. Rohan returned home around 3, humming to himself, still carrying the warmth of the cafe sunlight. He found the envelope resting neatly on the center table. He frowned, loosened his tie, and opened it casually. The color drained from his face as he read the first line. Divorce petition. For a moment, he laughed in disbelief, assuming it was some kind of cruel mistake. But as he read further, the legal language cut deeper than any accusation. His knees felt weak. He looked around the apartment, suddenly noticing Anya's absence. Her suitcase was gone. The baby clothes were gone. The framed wedding photo was missing from the wall. Panic surged through him like electricity. He called her again and again, but her phone was switched off. He drove to her parents' house across town, the harsh afternoon sun beating against his windshield, his heartbeat louder than the traffic around him. When he arrived, her father opened the gate with eyes that held no warmth. Anya appeared at the doorway, her face pale but resolute. There were no tears now. Only quiet strength. She didn't shout. She didn't accuse. She simply looked at him as though he were a stranger. In that gaze, Rohan understood the magnitude of what he had done. It wasn't just betrayal. It was abandonment. It was choosing momentary excitement over lifelong commitment. It was wounding the woman who carried his child. The woman at the cafe, Nisha, was not some grand love story. She was an escape. Work had been stressful. The thought of becoming a father had terrified him more than he admitted. Nisha made him feel young, unburdened, admired. He convinced himself it was harmless. That he deserved a little distraction. That Anya would never know. But daylight exposes truth. And now, under the same relentless sun, he saw himself clearly for the first time, cowardly, selfish, small. Days turned into weeks. Anya refused to see him. The legal process moved forward. Rohan stopped going to cafes. He stopped answering Nisha's calls. Instead, he found himself sitting alone in the nursery he had helped paint a soft shade of yellow. The crib stood empty. Dust began to settle on its rails. He would sit there in the afternoons, the quiet suffocating, replaying every moment he had taken for granted, Anya's laughter when she first told him she was pregnant, the way she placed his hand on her belly to feel the baby kick, her nervous excitement during doctor visits. Regret is a heavy companion. It followed him everywhere. One afternoon, nearly a month later, he received a call. Anya had gone into early labor. The hospital corridor was flooded with daylight pouring through tall windows. Rohan stood outside the maternity ward, unsure if he had the right to be there. When he finally saw Anya being wheeled past him, her face strained with pain, something primal stirred within him. He rushed forward instinctively, but she looked away. Hours felt like years. When the doctor finally emerged, announcing the birth of a baby girl, Rohan's legs almost gave way. He was allowed to see the child first. Wrapped in a soft pink blanket, she was impossibly small, her tiny fingers curled like delicate petals. As he touched her hand, she gripped his finger tightly, as if anchoring him to something greater than himself. In that fragile hold, his heart cracked open. This was not about fear anymore. Not about ego or escape. This was about responsibility. About love. About becoming worthy of the life that depended on him. When Anya was finally resting, he entered her room quietly. The sunlight softened everything, casting a gentle glow over her tired face. He didn't beg. He didn't defend himself. He simply apologized, fully, without excuses. He told her he was terrified of failing as a father, of not being enough, and that instead of confronting his fears, he ran from them. He admitted he had broken her trust in the cruelest way possible. Anya listened in silence. Healing, she knew, was not a switch to be flipped. Trust once shattered does not magically rebuild. But she also saw something different in his eyes, no arrogance, no distraction, only raw humility. Weeks passed. Rohan attended counseling. He showed up to every doctor appointment, every midnight feeding, every diaper change. He took leave from work. He learned how to soothe their daughter, whom Anya named Myra. He didn't demand forgiveness. He earned presence. Day by day, under ordinary daylight moments, shared coffee at the kitchen table, quiet walks with the stroller in the park, soft laughter when Myra smiled in her sleep, something fragile began to grow again. Not the naive love they once had, but a stronger, tested version of it. One evening, as the sun dipped low and painted the sky gold, Anya watched Rohan rock Myra gently on the balcony. The same arms that once held another woman now cradled his child with fierce devotion. People make terrible mistakes. But sometimes, remorse becomes the soil where change takes root. If this story touched your heart, if you believe people can learn, grow, and fight for the love they almost lost, please take a moment to like, comment, and share this video. Your engagement helps spread stories that remind us of the power of accountability and second chances. And before we end, comment, healing begins with truth, if you believe honesty is the first step toward rebuilding trust. Because sometimes, it takes losing everything in the bright light of day to understand what truly matters. And sometimes, in the smallest grip of a newborn's hand, a broken heart finds its way back home.